Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you my birth story. Now I did have Callie at home, so before I go any further, I just want to say whether you had your baby at home or in a hospital, kudos to you, great job mama. No judgment here as far as how you decided to do that. But when I say I had a home birth, a lot of people are just interested as far as what that looked like or what my experience was, because not many people do it. So I did want to share that. Another reason I wanted to share is because I feel like there's a lot of horror stories out there, and when you first find out you're pregnant, of course there's that excitement, but then there's also the just kind of anxiety around all the choices that you're gonna have to make, and you hear just a lot of negativity, I feel like, especially in America. So I wanted to share a story that was a good experience and hopefully encourage you in that way. So I went into labor when I was 41 weeks along, and the day started by going out to lunch with my mother-in-law, and thankfully she knew that by 41 weeks I was getting pretty stir crazy and impatient, so she took me out just to distract me, and we had lunch together and we shopped and just got a bunch of baby stuff, and it was really fun, but I was also feeling maybe a little bit more tired than usual, but I was still feeling pretty much my normal self. So later that day, my sister-in-law called and she's like, hey, do you want to go walking around one of the kind of grounds that we have by my house? And I said, well, sure. And I knew that I was tired from the day, but I was like, man, if I can walk and try to get this baby moving, that'd be great. So we were walking, it was my sister-in-law and her husband, and we were just walking around, and again I was kind of feeling more tired than normal, but nothing else really out of the ordinary. So we did our walk and came back, and they left, and as soon as they left I went to the bathroom, because when you're 41 weeks pregnant you have to go to the bathroom all the time. So I went to the bathroom and found that I had lost my mucus plug, and so at that point I was really quite excited, because I knew that it would probably be pretty soon that I'd be going into labor. Could be anywhere between a few hours or a few days, but I knew that it was coming. And then I also was quite nervous because I had really spent myself that day, so I wasn't sure exactly what was gonna happen. And I was actually on the phone with my husband Wyland during this time, and I was like just telling him how nervous I was and how excited I was. And he decided to just go get some dinner for us. We had Panda Express, and we really enjoyed dinner, but I didn't eat too much of it because I was a little bit nervous as far as going into labor with a stomach full of Panda Express. Once we had dinner, we decided to kind of settle in for the evening and go to bed early, because again, I knew that I would probably need the strength for labor. So we laid down and I fell asleep pretty quickly. And I would have to say probably around 10, 11 p.m. I started having contractions, and I never had any Braxton Hicks or anything, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I definitely knew that it was a contraction when it came. I don't really know how to explain it other than just kind of a tightening. And so I told Wyland that I was starting to have contractions, and I thought, you know, maybe I'll have one and then it'll just stop. And it didn't. I kept having contractions probably every 10 minutes, and they were about 45 to 60 seconds long. So they were nothing crazy intense, but they were definitely enough for me to think that I was probably going into labor. So that whole night I was contracting, and Wyland stayed up with me some of the time. And then we woke up in the morning and kind of started getting together, and the contractions pretty much completely stopped. So Wyland stayed home with me. He stayed home from work just because we weren't sure if things were going to get going or if my contractions were going to start again or not. And basically the whole day I had like maybe 3 contractions. So we were kind of just hanging out together. It was a little bit frustrating because I had been up the night before, but I was trying to be patient and just keep in that mental frame of just kind of bearing with it. So that next night we went to sleep again, And again, I fell asleep pretty quickly, and probably around the same time I started to have contractions again. And I was hoping that, things would really pick up and that I'd actually go into active labor this time. But the contractions were probably even less intense than the first night, so I wasn't really sure what to think of it all. So I had been in contact with my midwife, but I let her know that it was another night full of contractions and no real progress. So she said she wanted to come and check me. So later that day she came and she examined me, and she said I was about 2 to 3 centimeters along and that I could continue to just wait and let nature take its course. But she was concerned that I was going to get just too tired after having 2 full nights of contractions and them keeping me up. So she recommended that we do a natural method of induction. And after a little bit of thought, we decided to do that. So that natural method had a few different kind of steps to it that we had to do. So the first thing that she did was a little bit of like a cervical stretch, which wasn't too bad. And then she did primrose oil internally, and I had to start castor oil about an hour after that. And when she said castor oil, I was a little bit nervous because I had heard that for a lot of people that really kind of cleared them out and was not pleasant. But she did half the dose that most people usually do, and she said usually that's enough to nudge you along. So around 3:30 that day, I took the castor oil in a smoothie, and it really wasn't too bad. I didn't really taste it because it was mixed in with, fruit and everything. So I took the castor oil and kind of just waited and knew that it would probably start things pretty quickly. So I just tried to get into a good mental place and read over my affirmation cards. Before my midwife left, she really was just very sweet and gave me a big hug and prayed over me, and it just gave me a sense of peace going into what I knew was going to be kind of a marathon. Not too long after my midwife left, we decided that we should probably call our doula, and actually my original doula was out of town on a family emergency, so I wanted to call this doula so that we could kind of get acquainted and such before I was into active labor. So we called her, and the conversation went really well, and I felt very comfortable with her. And at some point in the conversation, she said that she thought that we would be calling back soon because castor oil usually works pretty quick. And again, I didn't really know what to expect with the castor oil, so I just kind of didn't think anything of it. But probably about a half an hour to an hour after we hung up with her, I told Wylan that we should probably call her because things were starting to get more intense. And so I was probably having contractions every 7-ish minutes lasting for about 30 to 45 seconds. And so Wylan was just laboring with me during that time, and I told him that I thought that it was probably time to put the sheets on the bed and to get the birthing pool at least set up, if not filled yet. And so he started to do that, and my labor continued to progress. And as a first-time mom, I was thinking that it was going to take a long time and that we'd have a lot of time, but things were really starting to pick up. So Wylan was trying to put the sheets on the bed and trying to get this tub set up, and I was calling him over what felt like every probably 2 minutes to him, and he was trying to help support me and set all this stuff up. And I just remember at one point him coming over by me, and I was holding like his head and his neck, and I could feel that he was starting to sweat from all the work of tending to me and getting things set up. So he did end up getting all of that set up just about around the time that our doula arrived. And I just remember seeing her walk in the front door, and she just seemed like, I don't know, it was angelic because I knew that she was going to be able to help ease my pain and just really help Wylan help me. And so it was a comfort to have her there. And so as soon as she walked in the door, she introduced herself because we had never met before. And she just kind of said that it was probably time to start the next step in the induction process. And I was like, no way, like things are picking up just fine. But I guess there was one of the specific homeopathic things that helped baby turn, and Callie was slightly posterior. So she said, well, we should probably do that one. So we did decide to do that one. And at that point we were in the living room, and I was on all fours, like leaning up against the couch, and I labored there for a while until my legs got tired. And then probably the bulk of my labor was in the kitchen on a birthing ball, just kind of leaning up against the counter. And so I labored there, and she actually showed Wylan how to put compression on my hips, and that was immensely helpful. I don't know how I would have gotten through it without Wylan doing those compressions. So that was great. That was worth getting a doula in and of itself. But she had me, in the kitchen on the birthing ball, and I was really getting to a point where I thought that we should call the midwife. So Wylan called our midwife, and she said that she would be on her way, and we continued to labor in the kitchen, and I was just swaying on the birthing ball, and then some of the time she wanted me to stand to help baby turn, and those were probably some of the more intense contractions, just standing leaning up against the counter. Also during this time, I'm not sure if I was going into transition or not, but I felt very sleepy, and I guess that is a way that your body can help cope with labor. It's just not something that I was expecting or that I had heard of, and it really did help me just to kind of let go and just relax and kind of let labor do what it needed to do. So I was kind of thankful for that sleepy state. But once my midwife arrived, I was definitely asking for that birthing pool. So she actually ended up doing my IV, which I needed for antibiotics. So I got my IV, and that probably took 15 to 20 minutes. And by the end of the IV, I was like, okay, I need to get in the pool. I want some relief. And so she was like, okay, great. She just said, let's try going to the bathroom first, and then you can get into the pool. So I hobbled over to the bathroom, and as I was on the toilet, my water broke. So that was convenient and exciting, and I just remember everyone being like, oh, your water broke on the toilet, how great. And it was exciting for me because I knew that, okay, we're kind of into the next step of things here. So as soon as my water broke, and that was a fairly intense contraction when it broke, as soon as it broke, I felt like I could feel her head against my cervix, and I really wanted to push, instantly wanted to push. I just remember saying, I'm feeling pushy. So as soon as my water broke and I felt that sensation, we went over to the tub, and I could definitely tell as soon as I got into the tub, there was such relief. It was such a help. And I could tell that I was at the end of, hopefully at the end of labor, because I was really starting to push and get more vocal at that point. Still though, as far as the intensity of labor goes, I definitely feel like it was manageable. I feel like there was maybe a couple times during labor that I said, man, I'm really struggling to cope, but it was definitely, I just felt like my body wasn't pushing me past what I could handle, which was great. And so back to the tub, starting to push. That part is a little bit foggy. I just remember getting into the tub and then being a little bit too warm. So Wylan and the doula were just putting cold towels and cold water over me in between contractions. And I was just continuing to push during that time. At this point, the midwife asked if she could check me, and I said that was fine. And when she did, she said, your baby's about this far from crowning. And that just made me get a second wind and really made me motivated to get this baby out. And so those next few pushes, I definitely was trying to work with them and trying to make them worth my while. So it was probably, I want to say 3 or 4 pushes after that my midwife said, feel your baby's head. And so I reached down and I felt Callie's head, and I looked down and it was pretty dark, and I was not expecting a head full of dark hair, but I guess that's, you know, kind of what happened. So as soon as I saw that, again, just got more energy and was getting so excited to meet her. And after that, because I was pushing pretty hard, she came fairly quickly, and I could definitely feel kind of that stretching, maybe ring of fire that people describe, but I definitely think that the water helped with that. And that sensation also was encouraging in a way, as weird as that sounds, because I knew that she was coming and that I was going to see her soon. So it was probably about 3 or 4 pushes after I saw her head for the first time that she came out, and she came out head and body all at the same time. And it was just an amazing moment that was surreal, because I didn't think that it could happen the way it did. And it was, I just remember my midwife saying, "Elizabeth, look down at your baby." And she came out, and I put her on my chest, and I looked at her, and I just said, like, this is my baby. Like, she looked just like me, in my opinion. And it was so beautiful. And having those first few moments with her, just to meet her and to look at her and to realize that the last 9 months and everything before that and the whole labor were all worth it, just to see her. And that was just a really special time. I remember checking to make sure she was a girl, not that it mattered, but I wanted to see, and counting all 10 fingers and toes and admiring her delicate little features. It was just, people say that time stands still, and it really kind of did feel that way. So after we had about, I would say, 15 minutes, or at least that's what I'm told, in the tub, just to really bond with her for that first time. And then I got out of the tub to deliver the placenta, and that went pretty well. It was a weird sensation, but it didn't hurt. And after the placenta was delivered, they kind of took me into the bedroom, and Wylan was able to have some skin-to-skin time with her. And I did have a little bit of a tear, so I needed a couple stitches, which they did right away. And I don't know whether, like, what degree it was, but I know it wasn't into the muscle, and it was nothing too painful. So after that, we were able to, the 3 of us, Wylan, I, and Callie, were able to just cuddle in the bed together, and I was able to nurse her for the first time, which was really just amazing to have her latched on for the first time. And she latched on really well. And so the 3 of us were just all cuddling in bed, and Terry and the doula were starting to clean up. And it was just this time of becoming a family of 3 and figuring out what maybe that would feel like. And at that point, I was pretty hungry, so Wylan made me some scrambled eggs and toast and brought it back to me in bed. And we just spent the rest of the night staring at our baby. Time frame wise, my labor started, I would say, around 3:30 when I took the castor oil, and she was born at 9:40. We named her Callie Grace, and she was 20.5 inches, 7 pounds, 8 ounces, and we just took her in the rest of the night. So to the first time mamas out there, I will tell you that I don't know exactly what it's going to be like for you, but for me, the pain of labor was definitely bearable, and I don't think I have a high pain tolerance as a person. I honestly am kind of a wimp as far as that goes. I pass out at the sight of blood and never really had done anything very painful in my life previously, but I read something that really helped me throughout labor, and it's that your muscles aren't going to work past your ability to cope. And I think that was really very true. So if you just keep that in the back of your mind, and that you really are capable of doing this, then I think that you could honestly have a wonderful labor. Birth is unpredictable, and if it doesn't go that way for you, try to give yourself grace, but go into it positive and know that it is a mental game, and that as long as you keep your head in the game, you do have good chances at having a good birth experience. If you've stayed with me to this point in the video, thank you for watching. If you're expecting, congratulations and my best wishes to you as you welcome your little one into the world before long.